Welcome back to another Film Geek movie review. In just a bit, I am headed out the door to check out the new Spatter Horror film, Jimmy and Stiggs. Jimmy and Stiggs is directed by Joe Begos, and it's starring Joe Begos, Matt Mercer, and Riley Dandy. It tells the story of an out-of-work filmmaker who goes on an absolute bender. During the course of this bender, he is abducted by aliens and then dropped back off at home. Once he comes to, he calls his good buddy Stiggs to come on over to the house because they need to stop an alien invasion. At least that's what I gathered from the completely insane trailer that I watched for this film. This movie looks like it is going to be nuts. Filmed on 17mm film in one location. This was filmed, I believe it started filming during the pandemic at Joe Begos' house, and I believe the entire film was filmed right there on location at his house. It took them 4 years of filming to complete this movie. All the special effects are completely practical, and apparently this is going to be insanely, brutally gross. And honestly, guys, that is something I love. I love a good splatter horror film, especially if it's got some good comedy added into it. I think that really helps out with all of the goo and guts going everywhere. But you know what? It is enough of me sitting here jibber-jabbering on. It's time for me to say goodbye to my faithful movie companion Haku, because I need to get out the door and check out Jimmy and Stiggs. Welcome back, just getting home from Jimmy and Stiggs, and guys, this is one alcohol-fueled, drug-induced neon nightmare. But did I enjoy it? Kind of. I would have to say I'm about 50-50 on this movie. Let's get this started, shall we? We're going to get things started with negatives, then move into the positives to end the video on the ever so important high note. Now, while there is a lot of stuff in this movie that I really enjoyed, we're going to get into that. There was unfortunately some things that I really felt dragged this movie down a little bit, that didn't quite get it to the greatness that it could have possibly achieved. Now, this film does follow the usual first act, second act, third act of everything, and the pacing, unfortunately, is extremely slow, especially in the second act. The first act sets everything up. There's a lot of stuff going on. We have our first taste of what this invasion is going to be like, and the story is set. Then we get to the second act, and I would say most of the second act is just Jimmy and Stiggs having an argument in a room. They get into a fist fight, then they have a little bit of an argument, then they get into a fist fight and everything like that. And it just seemed like that went on way too freaking long. And it honestly felt like it was put in there to just give the movie a little bit more of a runtime. And it does do a little bit of characterization and stuff like that, but this film does not necessarily need those types of things. And if you're also looking for something that has an extremely, drawn out story and all, and unfortunately, this movie is a lot of flash, not a lot of substance. There's not a lot of meat on the bone when you start getting down to it. And to be perfectly honest, I think this movie would have worked a lot better as an episode of like an anthology TV show, like a horror anthology, or maybe even like an anthology movie, something like VHS or something like that. I think that a film would have worked a lot better with a runtime of more of like 30 to 45 minutes, somewhere in there, thrown into an anthology film. And also, I feel like the movie really tried to take itself a little too seriously. At the beginning of this movie, you get a couple of fake trailers, and I'll get into why I both loved and kind of disliked the trailers at the same time. So the thing I disliked about the trailers was they set a precedence for this film to have a much bigger sense of humor. The very beginning of the movie, they do some fake trailers, and they're not very long, but unfortunately, not unfortunately, they do add into the runtime of the movie, and the movie only has a runtime of 1 hour and 20 minutes, and it feels like 2 hours. But let's talk about these trailers. Well, anyways, the trailers themselves are a lot of fun, and that's not the bad thing. The bad thing about the trailers were they were a lot of fun and funny, and it made you feel like this is what the rest of this film is going to be like. It's going to be a little bit more lighthearted, we're going to get a lot more jokes and so on, just like the trailers that were at the beginning of this film. No, this movie takes itself quite seriously. Now, it starts off kind of lighthearted, kind of joking, but it really gets into some nasty splatter horror as this film does progress, which we will get into the positives. But if you're looking for something that's going to be more of a horror comedy, if you were thinking this movie was going to be a campy, silly throwback to B horror movies of the 80s, almost, except it does take itself way too seriously. Now, the special effects are just fine, but you can definitely tell that this movie was on a lower budget, but things do look good. All in all, I would have to say the production value was a lot higher than I was expecting going into this film, but I was also expecting the movie to have a very campy, silly kind of feel to it, just like those old movies that I would have found late at night on USA, Up All Night, if you ever used to watch that one, or one of those old Monster Vision episodes or something like that. This is the kind of movie that I would expect to see at 2 o'clock in the morning when I was coming home from having too many beers at the local bar. I did not drive home, by the way. I am a fan of getting a ride home, thank you very much, but that's the kind of movie this is. You're flipping through late at night and you see it on some cable channel, or you're going through the old video store back in the 80s and you find this movie underneath a pile of VHS tapes at the very back, kind of hidden in the corner. That's the kind of vibe that this movie has, and it does really nail it, to be perfectly honest. So let's just go ahead and move into those positives, shall we? Let's talk about those special effects. Now, this film does brag having practical effects, and they do look really good. Like I did say, going into this film, I was expecting it to have a much more campier vibe, something to this like Critters or something like that. The good old little monsters that are attacking and you gotta fight them. But unfortunately, no, it does keep a much more serious tone, but those aliens actually do look good. They look better, probably because of the filming technique, which again, I will get into, but the puppets themselves look really good, and they get a lot of great use out of these puppets. The practical, bloody, nasty effects are ooey gooey fun. There's tons of bodily fluids all over this movie, and I like the fact that they use some kind of like neon paint for the alien blood, so things just get drenched in all of this neon color throughout the entire movie, and then you have all these, LED lights everywhere that are shining and just making that paint even more brilliant, and I thought it really gave this movie a great look. The cinematography is also on point. Using the 16mm film seemed like a really great idea, honestly. It does a good job of, kind of hiding some of the details of the special effects and all, so it gives a little bit there also. But it does provide a very unique look to this film. Everything looks kind of hazy and dreamy throughout the entire thing, and I don't believe it was a look that you could possibly achieve if you were using a digital camera. The color palette, as I said, was a lot of fun. This movie is soaked in color, and I really enjoyed that. Across the entire set, they have all sorts of LED colored lights everywhere. You have the alien blood going everywhere, and I really enjoyed that. The cinematography is actually extremely well done, if not just a wee bit disorientating. There's all sorts of different types of elements that are used with the cinematography to use it also as a tool to help you keep that uneasy, weird feeling that this movie provides. I love some of the excellent shots this film has. It utilizes also first-person view in a lot of areas. My feelings on the first-person view, though, is that it does get a little annoying, and I think that some folks might get a little disoriented while sitting there trying to watch this movie up on the big screen. But in all honesty, guys, I don't know if this necessarily is a sit in the theaters kind of movie. Again, this really had that vibe to me of something that I would just find at a video store, sitting there on the shelf, and me just staring at that cover going, Jimmy and Stiggs, this looks freaking wild. So all in all, guys, I would have to say that this is a stream it when it pops up kind of film for me. Now, if you're somebody who really wants to get out there and see an independent horror film that took a lot of effort and a lot of time, then go see it. By all means, support this film because there are some elements there that are really great. But expect that middle part of the movie to really slow down, and it legitimately gets boring. And I hate to say this, but my wife, Charming Amy, did walk out of the theater. She's like, I just can't take this. I'm sorry. I am bored out of my mind. And I thought maybe it was all the gore and grossness, because she was just like, she's kind of whispering and I couldn't really hear her that well. And I'm like, okay, she's going to go sit up front, whatever. And so she leaves. And then I find out later it was because she was actually bored to tears and was about to fall asleep in the theater. So there, that's from another perspective. I found this movie to have some really fun elements. I just wish that it wouldn't have been a full-length, feature-length film. Now those trailers, I almost forgot to mention. At the very beginning of the movie, they do 2 fake trailers. I'm not going to tell you about them much, but I will tell you that I laughed my ass off, and to be perfectly honest, that's the most excitement I heard out of the audience for the entire evening. There was not a lot of people in this movie, but I also had a very difficult time getting a vibe off of the people that were there. This movie was fairly dead silent throughout the entire thing. So in my opinion, that is never a good sign, in all perfect honesty. So yeah, if you are a person who just loves some crazy, gory, fluid, I keep saying fluid because it's not normal blood, it's crazy. There are some human special effects that look ridiculously good also. It's not just all the same gooey alien heads exploding and all. There are some other types of makeup and all in this film that looks really good. So all in all, if you're a big fan of splatter horror, you just absolutely love seeing some pretty good special effects or some practical effects up on the screen, and also a very uniquely filmed movie, you're gonna probably find a lot here. If you don't really care too much about the story and so on, you're probably gonna find a lot of fun to be had in this film. So I'd have to say, stream it, just watch it, give it a chance. But if you are a fan of this type of horror, if this does sound like something you would really enjoy, check it out in theaters if it is in your area. Well, that's all I have for you today. Thanks again for checking out the Film Geek. If you liked what you saw here today, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications, and give me the old thumbs up so I know you like what you're seeing. And if there's one more thing you can do, folks, that is keep watching movies. You know I'm gonna.